Every human being lives two lives, one that is visible to the world, and another that remains hidden deep within. This hidden life is what we call the shadow. It's a silent self, the face you don't show in daylight but that speaks to you in dreams and feelings. This inner self doesn't always speak the truth, but instead makes you feel things you can't explain. It stirs when you are quiet. Have you ever asked yourself why certain emotions or patterns return again and again? The same insecurities, the same broken desires keep repeating. Perhaps it's because what you've buried deep inside has now begun to shape your outer world. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow isn't evil. It's simply everything you refuse to look at. Your shadow isn't a villain. It's just the parts of you that you've been avoiding." You may believe you know yourself, but have you ever faced the version of you that was shaped by fear instead of identity? That part of you, built not from your name, but from your wounds and worries, is your shadow. Shadow work is the path to meet and embrace it. The journey of shadow work is not about denying the dark, but welcoming it. Ancient wisdom says, to free your soul, you must first pass through the door that appears as fear. This isn't just a video. It's a ritual, a sacred invitation to transformation. The term shadow work might sound like psychology at first, but at its core, it's spiritual discipline. It's a sacred process that leads the soul back to its lost wholeness. Carl Jung, a pioneer of psychology, defined the shadow as a moral challenge to the ego. The shadow is everything your ego refuses to accept. But it's not just a part of Western psychology. In ancient India, it was called avidya, the ignorance that keeps the soul away from truth. It's the darkness that clouds our inner vision. In the mystical traditions of Egypt, the shadow was seen as Ka and Kabit. After death, the soul had to confront its own shadow before it could move on to the next life. In every culture, the shadow was never to be ignored. It was to be faced. In our modern lives, we often ignore the shadow. We focus on positive thinking and chasing goals. But the ignored parts always return. They speak when you get triggered, when you self-sabotage, when you repeat the same wrong turns. This video is a journey inward. A journey where you'll discover, what is the shadow? How can you recognize your shadow? How do you integrate it? And most importantly, what can shadow work give you in return? This isn't an easy road. It's the road of truth. And the truth often shows up wearing the mask of fear. So if you're ready, let's open this mysterious door. Part 1 begins here. What is the shadow? It does not mean darkness in itself. It means everything you don't allow yourself to be. The shadow is the part of your personality you've buried under the fear of society, family, morality, or culture. It's not just your flaws or unwanted desires. It includes your creativity, your authentic voice, everything you once rejected. How is the shadow formed? When you were a child and got scolded for being angry, you learned that anger was bad. So you hid it. When you spoke your truth and were laughed at, you chose silence. Slowly, you stopped expressing your true self. Maybe you thought differently from the crowd, but standing out was scary. So you conformed, and your uniqueness was sent into the shadow. That's how an unseen self is born. Not dead, but quietly learning to survive in darkness. The shadow isn't just filled with the bad. It also hides the power that could become your courage, your revolution, your creativity. In the Vedas, the shadow is avidya, not evil but absence of light, a missing connection to inner truth. In Buddhism, the shadow is the desire that turns into suffering when it's misunderstood. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's first chapter, where he fears the battle, is his first confrontation with shadow. Krishna teaches him, what you refuse to see can set you free. So the question isn't whether you have a shadow. The question is, how will you meet it? Will you continue to suppress it? Or will you step into your inner temple and begin the work? This is the beginning of your shadow journey. The shadow isn't a monster hiding in the dark. More often, it's the person you see in the mirror every day but don't truly recognize. Your shadow hides just behind your awareness. But it shows up in your decisions, your relationships, your thoughts. So how do you recognize your shadow? There are signs. First, projection. What annoys you most in others is often what you've buried deep within yourself. Someone's anger irritates you? Maybe you've silenced your own rage long ago. You feel jealous of someone's success? Maybe you once told yourself that dreaming big was wrong. Projections are mirrors. They reflect your hidden feelings onto the faces of others. They show you the places you've left unexplored within. Second, repeated emotional patterns. Do you keep falling into the same toxic relationships? Do you often destroy your own opportunities? These aren't accidents or fate. They're patterns created by your shadow, the shadow that wants to be seen. Third, emotional triggers and sudden reactions. When small things make you feel intense anger, shame, or sadness, it's not about the moment. It's the shadow speaking. Your shadow uses emotions to knock on the door of your awareness. Fourth, energetic anchors and shadow karma. The higher you try to rise, the more your shadow can pull you down. You carry invisible weights, emotional chains made of guilt, shame, past wounds, unspoken fears. They are made from your own rejected emotions. Imagine you're swimming in water. Peace, joy, and love float above. But chains tie your ankles, memories, regrets, pain. As you try to rise, the shadow pulls you back. Shadow work helps you find these chains and gently begin to release them. Carl Jung saw karma not just as past life energy, but as psychological consequences. What you suppress in your shadow becomes your karma. Plays out in 5 layers. First, personal karma like self-sabotage, low self-worth, and habits that hold you back. For example, every time you're close to success, you stop yourself. That's shadow karma. Second, interpersonal karma. Repeating the same painful relationships. When you project your shadow, you attract people who match it again and again. Third, ancestral karma. Patterns passed down from generations. Abandonment, addiction, fear. These aren't just family stories, they're emotional DNA. You carry what your ancestors didn't heal, and it becomes your shadow until you decide to face it. Fourth, societal karma. Labels and roles you were conditioned to play. Boys shouldn't cry. You must always be perfect. These ideas push parts of you into the shadow. You shrink to fit into someone else's expectations. Fifth, archetypal karma. Symbols from the collective unconscious. Like recurring figures in your dreams, these are suppressed shadow archetypes. They visit you not to scare you, but to ask for integration, to become part of your whole self again. Karma isn't just about past lives. It's the unrecognized repetition of your current life. Every time you ignore your shadow, the cycle continues. But when you recognize it, the cycle begins to break. That's the power of shadow work. Shadow work creates energetic release. Every time you accept a suppressed emotion, every time you look at an old wound without fear, you drop one anchor. You free yourself from a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. That's why shadow work isn't just healing. It's an energy shift. Pause and reflect. Your shadow isn't just a concept. It's an experience. Your failures, your shame, your hidden desires. Have you ever truly looked them in the eye? Ask yourself, how many times have you tried to become someone you're not? Is the weight of your good image crushing your real self? Every trigger, every pain could be pointing toward a shadow that wants to be seen. Shadow work is not just about peeking into darkness. It's about sitting with your wounds. Not running, not hiding, not shaming them. Simply being with them. Because that's where the light begins to return. When you stop pretending and start listening. The first step of shadow work is recognizing your shadow. But the true transformation begins when you start to embrace it. Shadow work helps you turn the parts you've hidden into inner strength. It's not about fixing, it's about integrating. There are 4 main stages of shadow work. First, invite the shadow. The parts of you that you've been hiding are simply asking to be heard. Don't fear them. Welcome them. Sit quietly. Close your eyes and say, I am ready to see what is hidden inside me. Carl Jung's technique, active imagination, begins here. You engage in inner dialogue with your shadow. Second, observe and journal. Dedicate time daily to reflect. Ask yourself, what made me feel ashamed today? What behavior in others do I harshly judge? What part of me do I never show anyone? When you give your shadow words, it loses its fear. It becomes insight. Third, meditation and mirror work. The things that make you the most uncomfortable are often keys to your freedom. Look into a mirror and say, "I see you. I accept you." Give your shadow a name. Maybe it's little me, angry child, or fearful one. Naming gives form, and what has form can be transformed. You stop hiding and start healing. Fourth, self-forgiveness ritual. The heaviest shadow is the one we hold against ourselves. Guilt, shame, regret. Stand in front of a mirror. Gently tap on your little finger's meridian point and say, "I forgive myself. I was only human. I was still learning." As you speak these words, your body will respond. Tears, yawns, shivers. These are signs of healing. You don't need to erase the shadow. You need to listen to it. And in that listening, something powerful begins to shift inside. The goal of shadow work is never to become perfect. It is to become whole. As you accept your shadow, the world outside doesn't change immediately, but you do. And when you change, the world starts to respond in kind. The first major shift appears in your relationships. When you accept your own darkness, you stop trying to control or fix others. What once bothered you in them now points you inward, showing an unhealed pain of your own. Imagine someone's anger used to upset you, but after shadow work, you realize it's because you denied your own anger. Now, you don't hate that person, you understand them. This leads to fewer fights and deeper emotional connection. The second change is your relationship with yourself. You're no longer pretending to be someone else on the outside while feeling different within. Shadow work frees you from the mask. You stop performing and start being. Maybe you once avoided yourself through work, phones, or other people. Now you can sit with yourself quietly without shame. You begin to witness your mistakes, your fears, and your unfinished feelings with love, not judgment. This deepens self-worth. Guilt and shame reduce. A steady peace begins to rise within. The third big benefit appears in your energy and your power to manifest. Suppressed emotions block your energy, like heavy anchors that won't let you move forward. But when you look at your pain with curiosity and courage, that pain transforms into power. For example, guilt you've carried for years might have been sabotaging your joy. But once you face it, write it down and forgive yourself, something releases. That release becomes new energy. And now what you desire begins to manifest more easily. Why? Because your vibration has shifted. As they say, reality doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your energy. And finally, the greatest gift of shadow work is emotional mastery. Where once you reacted to triggers with anger, fear, or retreat, now you pause. The trigger becomes a message, not a threat. You become a silent witness, able to feel emotions without drowning in them. When someone criticizes you, you don't lash out. You pause and ask, "Is there truth here I'm not seeing?" If yes, you learn. If no, you move on in peace. The result? Fewer emotional storms, more groundedness, a mental stability that comes not from suppression but from understanding. Shadow work is not magic. It's a journey into your truth. And once you embrace it, that truth becomes your power. Shadow work doesn't aim to make you right or perfect. It aims to make you whole. As Carl Jung said, individuation, the full growth of personality, is the process of becoming complete, not flawless. Your ego, persona, shadow, and higher self are not separate rivers. They become one vast ocean. Darkness becomes the doorway to dawn. Every spiritual path has said this: the light is born in darkness. The Vedas say, without understanding ignorance, you cannot find wisdom. Buddhism teaches us to understand suffering before finding liberation. The Egyptian Book of the Dead tells us that only by passing through the shadow can the soul reach the light. This is no coincidence, it's a law. Just like night is darkest before the dawn, shadow work is the final darkness before the soul awakens. Inner alchemy moves from breakdown to awakening. The ancient alchemists had 3 stages to create gold. First, nigredo, blackening, where the metal is broken down. This is the first stage of shadow work, acknowledging your broken parts. Second, albedo, purification through tears and release. And third, rubedo, reddening. The final stage, when the base metal becomes gold. When your shadow no longer fights you but fuels you. When one day you realize you're no longer just thinking, you're awake. That moment, your shadow becomes your guide. There's a saying, when you embrace your scariest shadow, it starts blessing you. That anger you suppressed becomes the strength to set boundaries. That shameful greed transforms into purposeful passion. The fear that once made you feel weak now becomes empathy that connects you to others. This is the inner alchemy where poison becomes nectar. The final truth? Your darkness is your teacher. Your shadow is not your enemy, but your guide, here to teach you life's deepest lessons. It's the part of you that's been screaming, see me, accept me, love me, and when you do, something magical happens. The same energy once trapped in guilt and shame begins to flow into creativity, compassion, and clarity. If you've listened this far, you are a seeker. You have dared to look into the darkness. You've seen that behind fear is power, behind mistakes, wisdom, and in the soil of your shadow lies the seed of your light. Only one step remains now. Embrace your shadow. It's not the end. It's the beginning of your true self. This journey isn't over, it has just begun. We are not here for motivational quotes. We are here to reclaim the treasure buried within us that the world called darkness. If this message touched a hidden part of you, acknowledge it. Just type shadow work. These two words are the first brave step in accepting what's been hidden. Maybe the algorithm brought you this video, but your soul chose to watch it for a deeper reason. Share this with someone you know is struggling, not to give advice but to offer them a mirror. Because we don't fix others, we help them see themselves. Every like, comment, or share is not just an action. It's a signal to the universe. I am ready to go deeper.